First, I just want to start by saying, welcome to everyone that's come in. My name is Matt Holman. I'm head of growth at QPilot, which is a subscription software program that basically is the program you need when you need subscriptions that can change. That's what we're all about, as making that kind of flexibility possible. And I'm really lucky and happy to be joined by Ivan Rodriguez, who is currently the CTO of iHeartDogs and other brands related to them, as well as the founder of iFix Woocommerce. So he's a technical solutions expert related to Woocommerce, WordPress, all things e-commerce. So I just want to start, Ivan, by saying I've done an okay job, I hope, at least at introducing yourself. But if you wouldn't mind just telling everyone a little bit more about your background and experience and what you're up to now.
Yeah, no, you've done a great job. Thanks, Matt. Let's see. My background really is in e-commerce. I've been in the e-commerce biz for the last, about 13 years now. So, been around for a while, since 2009, and just mainly startups for the most part. So really building stores from scratch is like my expertise, I would say, but also managing larger brands as well. So already well-established brands as well. So, specifically for WooCommerce, I've been, I would say, a WooCommerce expert for the last 7 years, really just mastering, all the aspects of, working with WooCommerce. I do work with Shopify as well, just not on the development side of things. But, I would say, if anything, my expertise is in around web development, business intelligence, and, just overall IT management, just being able to, integrate systems and processes and across the whole company, and so, and a lot of background in marketing and MarTech, I would say, just because, I've worked with a lot of great marketers, thankfully, and just, gleaned as much as I could from them and been able to really just understand how all those things work together. So, yeah, that's
I think modern e-commerce, if you're a technologist in any way, you have to be related to marketing, because it's really about acquisition, notifications, updates, all those things that go into that. So I think that makes a ton of sense. I will say to the group, so just to kind of maybe give everybody an overview of the outline for kind of what we prepared today. I'm basically going to be interviewing Ivan a lot of questions for the next 30, 40 minutes. If you have any questions during that time, please drop them into the chat. But at the same time, we're going to try to get 20, 25 minutes towards the end for any additional questions people have for myself, but I mean, you're here to see Ivan. So for Ivan and in questions related to kind of what he's just talked about, what we're going to talk about, those types of things. So I want to make sure everybody understands that there'll be time for questions at the end, but if you do have one, please just drop it in the chat as well. So Ivan, a lot of the brands that I talk to and I work with, I think there's kind of like two basic schools of thought related to subscriptions, in the sense of you're either kind of doing it and trying to figure out how to be better at it, or you're thinking about doing it. And big brands are doing this as well, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you're big or small, you could be selling 10,000 units a day or 10, you're trying to figure out whether subscriptions makes a good choice for you. So I'm curious, related to some of the brands that you've worked with, what are a lot of the questions that come into that around whether we should launch subscriptions or not?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, really, let's talk about a little bit about iHeartDogs specifically, just because that was kind of like our flagship, for starting with subscriptions. We were already selling, consumable type of products for dogs, right? So like treats, supplements, and things like that. But we were not doing subscriptions at that point when we first started, and we obviously noticed like a pretty high return rate for customers already coming back, and shopping for the product. But we were kind of curious, so can we improve that, right? Can we get our customers to come back more than maybe 3 times a year to make a purchase, right? What if we were able to get them on like get a sale for a monthly basis, versus 3 times a year. And so that the idea of starting like a auto ship or subscription service came up. We originally were thinking, well, what if we do like something like BarkBox, right? Everybody's heard of BarkBox, right? Do a box subscription, put the products in there, and just do a monthly thing, right? But after we kind of looked at the details ourselves, like the economics of it, it was definitely more like, I would say, difficult, right, to keep a profit doing that model. I don't know if anybody else has experienced that with doing subscription boxes, but to keep it at a competitive price, you have to really eat your margins, right, and eat into your margins with discounts and things like that. And so it's hard to sustain that, for a startup, right, or even like a larger brand that needs to make a profit, right, because profit is what a business lives off of most of the time, right, unless you have a lot of venture money. But we obviously we work with trying to make a profit, and so that model didn't work for us, and so we decided, well, what if we were just to get somebody to subscribe to a single product, and just stay subscribed, right, like for an indefinite period of time, right? How can we make that easy for them? And since we use WooCommerce, right, we looked at the options, right? There was really only two main ones: WooCommerce Subscriptions, and then we found AutoShip. It was WC AutoShip at that time, right? And we tried out. Actually, we started with WooCommerce Subscriptions, but the problem there was actually the functionality of it. We were looking to do per item subscriptions. The only way to do that with WooCommerce Subscriptions is getting an additional plugin, right, to make that functionality work. And we really didn't see the value in that, and trying to like basically keep two plugins working, and then the potential conflicts that could cause eventually down the line, right? So we decided, well, let's give WC AutoShip a try. It worked out of the box for us, just as far as like getting things set up, integrated, setting up, our communications, with, like just the, reminder emails and just things like that. It was just, pretty easy to get it all set up. It worked with our payment processor at the time, and still does. So there was very little friction in terms of getting started. And obviously, when we first started, we didn't know what our offer would be, right? Because most of the times, when you want to get somebody to subscribe for your product, you have to come up with a pretty decent offer, right, that would incentivize them, right, to stay subscribed. And so we obviously looking at our margins, figuring out like, okay, well, what can we afford to give the customer? We started pretty, I would say, conservative. We started pretty conservative, and we were able to get the business going, because really, when you're
I would say, Ivan, do you remember what that initial offer was? Was it like 10% off, or was it a percentage discount?
5%.
5%?
Yeah.
How did that go at first?
I mean, we were able to get a couple, subscriptions in, but I would say the opt-in rate was, a lot lower than it is right now, based off of, what we've been able to work out. So,
real quick, because I want to go down that rabbit hole a little bit with you too. But I would say, so when you're planning that, in that planning phase, what kind of input are you getting from the different aspects of the business, from like ownership, from marketing, operations, that are like, hey, if I have a subscription program, I need to make sure it's doing this? Or like, are there common questions or issues you run into when you're like from the different business and units within an e-commerce company?
Yeah, for sure. Really, like, the owners, right, are most interested in understanding like, how does this benefit the business down, like, to the bottom line, right? And so like having the right data and analytics, like, to be able to like provide them,
like, related to profitability, how this is going to affect margins. Like, is this really going to, I know a common question I get is, if I already have customers coming back and I do a subscribe and save where I'm doing 10% off, is that really going to make me more money because people are already buying already?
Yeah, and it does when it's done right. And I think the reason why we started so conservative is because our margins at the time were actually pretty low. But over the last couple of years, we intentionally focused on building our margins, increasing those margins, right, by working with our suppliers or working with different suppliers, and that gave us the room then to give better discounts at the same time and also increase our subscription. So overall, it's increased our business, but we had to do the hard work, right, of looking at, and working with our suppliers to increase our margins. So that was it was an intentional focus for us.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So I'd say the other questions kind of related to that. When you're launching, were you already thinking about what your conversion and opt-in rates are? Were you already thinking about churn? Like, what were you thinking from the beginning? Like, what you know now versus where you started, obviously, is very different. But when you're starting that launch, how were you thinking about churn and conversion?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, when we started this, we were, and it's a pretty common term in startups, right? We went MVP, right? We were like, let's get this going as soon as possible, and let's understand, right, like how this affects like customer behavior. How many people do actually get signing up? How soon do they stop their subscription? Like, it was really just about like a learning process. And I would say since we started, it's been 5 years or so now. The first 2 years, we really had it on autopilot, right? Like, it was just working and it was just on, right? But like, as we were looking at like that business unit, right, of our consumables type of business, we were like, okay, well, if we really want to grow it, right, we have to change our strategy and pay more attention to like margins, but then also like getting people to stay subscribed longer, right? Just so that way we can, figure that out, that piece out better. And so, yeah, like what we know now from when we started, like, we're definitely a lot more focused on churn rate, right? Like understanding, okay, how long can we keep somebody subscribed? What's that time period? What's the average, right? And try to optimize for that. And even now, I would say we're still working on this, right? Like, and I think that's something that like, maybe brands don't realize is, subscription model, right, isn't like a set it and forget it type of thing, maybe initially, right, to learn. But then after that, you really have to like come back and look at it and say, okay, well, how can we make this better? And we'll talk about this a little bit more. It's like, looking at the data, understanding like what are some of the things that we can improve on. And so, yeah, I guess that hopefully answers your question there.
No, it totally does. And I think that makes a lot of sense. That's a lot of the ways that we like recommend people that are coming onto our platform. Is if you haven't been doing it, you should launch, because you need data, right? You don't know how often somebody's going to churn like 6 months later if you don't have a program and that's been around for at least 6 months, right? So that makes a ton of sense. So I'm really kind of curious. I know with you have a unique background in that how you approach data and your ability to like manage design as well as some of the back end elements. So I'm curious to kind of learn more about how you were with, say, iHeartDogs or other companies, how you're approaching those things like customer experience or the overall design. Like how involved, once you had that, you said the first couple of years was kind of like a set and forget it, just kind of running. When you came back to it and you're like, okay, let's figure this out. What were some of the ways you started to like improve or think about design and customer experience?
I mean, the customer is always right at the end of the day, right, for most businesses, and we started actually reading actual customer feedback from those that were subscribed, and one of our main concerns really has been like just the amount of people that were unsubscribing because of like they didn't understand like how much they were supposed to give their dog, right, in this case, right, the kind of product that we were selling, right? These supplements, right? Some of them were concerned about, oh, what if I were to overdose my dog with this? Or what if I were to, I'm not seeing any effect, right? In terms of like the product, right? On my dog's health. And so, initially we didn't really notice that, but after we paid attention to some of the feedback, we listened, and we decided, okay, well, let's explore the idea of, maybe optimizing our product pages, right, to answer those questions up front, right? And that was kind of game changing for us, right? And I don't know if you have a design. I think they were going to share.
Yeah, Taylor, do you want to do a screen share real quick and we can look at the dog's product page?
Yeah, we'll take a
Yeah,
look
one
at it
second.
here, but uh, we invested, right, in development of this page, and it's paid off really. We've noticed, I think since we started utilizing this page format for our supplement products, like we've been getting our opt-in rates to like I think it was like 30-40% opt-in, and then at the same time uh, people are staying, their subscription has changed as well. So like we were playing around with the idea of like, what if we were to default people to, instead of one bag, default them to the two bag option, right? And the two bag has been like game changing for us, because now we get a lot more people going for the two bag option. So their quantity is higher, right? The price of that subscription is higher. And then we've been playing around with incentives. They not only get a discount if they were to buy more, right? Buying two or more, right, gives you a different discount. But then at the same time, if you were to subscribe and save, you get an additional discount and you get free shipping. So that's obviously initially this may have not worked for us unless we were intentional with building up our margins and making it possible. But now it makes sense, economics wise. And so we are on one of our other brands. It's called it's a CBD brand. We actually now make about 40% of our revenue from subscriptions based off of these kind of changes that we've made. And so monthly revenue now is 40% of it is coming in from auto ship subscriptions. And so that means having to rely a little less on like trying to do just getting on that Facebook treadmill, right, and like trying to acquire a bunch of customers. You still have to do that work, obviously, to keep because people will churn, right? No matter what you do, right, there will be churn, right, in your subscription business. But you still have to have that influx of new people. But it does, at least it gives us a steady base, revenue, right, stream for us at the beginning. So of the month.
That makes a lot of sense. So just kind of like recap a lot of what you said. So you had the program going. A lot of the feedback you got from people that were churning was that they weren't sure about how much they should be ordering or not, which I think is a really, really common problem related to subscriptions. Is people are like, I have too much, I have too little. I ordered a bag that lasted me 6 months, but I'm getting a bag every month. Like that's a really common issue related to that. So it's interesting to me that is improved your conversion rate. So on the product page, people were able to find what they need and convert better. You're able to retain people longer because you're giving them the amount of product they need, as well as offering that two bag option. It sounds like you were able to boost the profitability of your sales as well.
Yep. Yeah, it was definitely a win-win thing, for the customer and for us.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's brilliant. Okay, so the next part of I know about like any good subscription program is really like notifications and customer engagement, right? So thinking about how you're emailing them, you're letting them know an order's coming up. So how do you approach that? Do you have any insights related, like data that you think works well with what you've done?
Yeah, I think any communication, right? Email communication, SMS, right? Like anything that you do, you always want to remind the customer why they shop with you, right? And for us, the reason why our customers shop with us is because we donate, right, a specific amount, right, from every single purchase that's made in the store, right? And so we're not a nonprofit, right? But we support a very large nonprofit through our store sales, and we give quite a bit. Just last year, I think we hit around 2.5 million donated just that year, right? And so for a startup, that's a pretty significant amount, I think, and that's the reason why our customers shop with us. And so the more, in any point, right, we communicate with our customers, even if it's an auto ship notification, right, we want to remind them, like, hey, remember, every time you purchase from us, you're making an impact. And if anything, we actually call them now heroes, right? Instead of calling customers, we came up with this whole branding of like, calling our customers heroes. Our support, our customer support team isn't customer support team, it's hero support team, right? Like, and building this culture around like, fact that, our customers are heroes every time they purchase from us. And so, that's something that, marketing has, been pushing and focusing on more and more. And so whether it's an auto notification saying, hey, your subscription is going to be shipping out pretty soon, we try to keep that in the forefront, right? And so, that's definitely important, right? When you send things up. And then also obviously on automations, right? If you have any, if you're using an email service provider like Klaviyo or, MailChimp or whatever, you want to maybe treat those subscription customers a bit different, right? And so the nice part about like AutoShip Cloud, right, is, you have the integration with Zapier, and Zapier has like, thousands of, integrations with other systems. And so you can pass a lot of this data from one system to the other using Zapier. And so that's what we do with Klaviyo, we're able to pass that information to Klaviyo, let the profiles updated to know that this customer is a subscription customer, and we email them a bit different, or we change, we maybe have a different flow when they first start, right? Maybe like an onboarding experience, right? For one of our brands, we have this very like tailored like onboarding experience where, there's this automation that just teaches the customer about what they just purchased, right? Like how much they should be giving, or just really answering those kind of questions that like, will come up, right? And that we get pretty commonly, right? So through these automated flows, so that way, they're more likely to stay, with their subscription. So hopefully that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. So as part of the onboarding process, you're educating somebody about like how they can make changes, what it's like being in the program, answering basically FAQs, because again, that comes down to like you're understanding your churn reasons. You've collected data regarding why people leave and what makes them stop, and you're addressing those up front to try to improve it. So have you seen, like when you started, between when you were 2 years in and you had just had to set and forget, like what kind of lift or change did you see in some of those churn metrics?
Yeah, I mean, we were probably, I think, percentage wise, like when we started, we were probably around like 30 to 40%, like within the first like 90 days, the subscription would be paused or even deleted, right? And I think right now we're probably in like a healthier range, probably around 20 to 30%. But like, we still have a lot of room to grow. Like we noticed that, obviously we still have improvements to make there, but we definitely are seeing our churn rate gone down, because you can kind of see this inside of QPilot, which is nice, is like you can see the number of subscriptions you have active versus like the number that have been paused or deleted. And usually you have, when your active subscriptions are going up, you also see your paused subscriptions going up as well, right? But like we've noticing a flattening right now with like our active subscriptions going up, but like our paused subscriptions flattened. Also our deleted subscriptions flattened as well. So like we've already like visually seen that data, right? And we could obviously like do more work to export and understand it better. But yeah, it's definitely affecting, like the work we've done, has affected how I guess how less often people are unsubscribing.
Sure. Well, it sounds like that automation, that onboarding, some of those notifications are playing a key component of that. And I think with what you're doing, it's very specific to iHeartDogs and your related brands of that donation aspect. But it makes me think of, for any other brand, you're thinking about the value proposition related to the product, to the subscription, to that brand. Of every touch point, you have an opportunity to remind somebody why they bought something, why it's important to them, why they want to keep doing it, I think is really, really critical, as well as that trust you're building by making it easy for people to manage everything, right? If there is a problem, they want to change their frequency, they want to change the product, they can click through those emails, log in really quickly, and make that really, really easy. So that's awesome.
A really fast way to get somebody to unsubscribe is making it difficult for them to unsubscribe or pause their subscription, right? I experienced that myself with a separate store, and I just remember I was like, I can't believe they're doing this. Like, I just felt like I was like frauded and cheated, and I just like I actually had to email their support team to pause the subscription or cancel it. And even then, like I still had the next month's, subscription go through, and I was just like, I was furious. Like I was like, I can't believe a brand would do this, and so, you definitely don't want to give your customers that experience.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So, kind of like a couple of wrap up questions related to like, are there other issues that you've run into being the CTO that you've run into related to subscription programs that you can talk about?
Yeah, I think I kind of touched on this earlier. It's like, you can't set it and forget it, right? Like maybe initially, right, you just to get information, right, get data, right? But if you really want subscriptions to be a integral part of your business and be a profitable part of your business at the same time, like you have to do the research. You have to look at your data. You have to analyze it. You also have to like put some mind share on it. And I think that's a problem with, a lot of marketers, right? Is like your minds are always all over the place. You're thinking about, acquisition, you're thinking about returning customers, you're thinking about this, but like subscriptions is separate from returning customers, right? It is a returning customer, but you have to give it the mind share that it needs to make that even an integral part of your business, right? And so at the same time, like, your subscription business is definitely affected by like your new customer acquisition at the same time, right? Like if you're not bringing in enough new customers, right, and quality customers, right? Because you can have, you can have, different kinds of, kind of customers, right? Like you can have low quality customers, higher value customers, and the more you can do to bring in, higher value customers into your business, like those are the kind of customers that are going to be the most likely, to keep their subscription, right, for a longer period in time. So, if you're not trying to work on offsetting your churn, right, by bringing in new customers, like, it's definitely going to debilitate your subscription business.
Okay, and so before we kind of launch into maybe the Q&A section, do you have anything else you'd like to bring up related to techniques or things you've done related to conversion or retention efforts?
I mean, I could say what we're working on outside of what we kind of talked about. We are working on optimizing for the first-time customer. I would say conversion rate, but also like average order. And we obviously are focusing on it because, right now marketing on like Facebook, other channels are really hard, right? Inexpensive, right? And so to better, handle, to better offset that challenge, right? We were really looking at like what we can do on the landing page level, right? How we can get a new customer, converting and eventually, so like maybe playing around with the idea of like maybe not offering like auto ship right away, but offering it like, in a different part of the experience. And so it's something that we are, we're exploring and we're researching and going to be working on probably pretty soon. So that's something that I guess I can share.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If you're thinking a lot of people, if they're new to your product, they're not going to try a subscription right away. So it's oftentimes a second or a third purchase where that kind of gets incentivized. So that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we've got a couple of chat questions I'd like to kind of get into first, and then we'll open up for anybody else that'd like to chime in. The first question is from Chris. So it looks like they're doing Amazon FBA on and off Amazon. Do you have any more info about subscribe and save on Amazon and how to improve that? Do you have any on that, Ivan?
That's a really good question. We are doing that on, so we do FBA as well. And we have some of our subscription products on there. I wouldn't have a lot of data to give you right now or insight, but from what we've seen, it's obviously, it's just as much of a challenge to get somebody to subscribe to your product, just on Amazon, right? As it is on your website. And it's the same kind of concept, right? Like people probably won't subscribe to your product until they first try it. there's definitely different strategies you use, obviously, for FBA versus like, on-site, right? You might do rebates, you might do, the other things to get somebody to first try your product, right? And that's something we've, been working with an agency on, is just different offer types, like with rebates or just, different ideas that we've been working on. So yeah, I can't really give that much more information just because, it hasn't been a focus quite for us yet, but, we started it last year. So, we'll probably put more emphasis on it this year or even next year. So we'll see.
Okay. Okay. And Chris, if you want to ask a follow-up question, we'll come back to that too. So a question from Matt, how to find the optimal discounts for subscriptions? Are you using any A/B testing?
Yes, so we are using A/B testing. So we did A/B test our discount offers, like free shipping or 10% or 5% or 15%, right? Like, and we use Google Optimize for this. And there's obviously a free version that you could use. We use the free version because we don't need to run that many A/B tests at a given time. You get about 5 free A/B tests at any given time using Google Optimize, and so it's pretty easy to integrate if you're already using Google Analytics. With WooCommerce, it's also pretty easy to integrate. So yeah, hopefully, every company is going to be different, so that's why you got to optimize, like using, A/B tests. So that way you understand what moves the needle.
Yeah, and I would add to that, when we're working with different merchants on this as well, there's really 2 aspects to the testing. It's the conversion, but also the retention element. So, if you offer a higher discount, a common corollary is like a higher discount will result in more churn because people are price shopping. However, that's not always true, which is why you test. So if you offer a weekend special, one of our merchants was doing like a lifetime 20% off over the weekend. And so they were able to convert really highly, and then they're able to test that cohort. So that may or may not be a common term, but if you just think of how you're breaking people down, you can break them down by when they signed up, what their initial discount was, look at the data that, and see if this 30% discount, were we able to convert at a higher rate based on product page views and who checked out on a subscription? And then over time, how does that group perform? Do they last less? And so is that lasting less, that lifetime value for that customer actually end up being lower, so it's not as valuable? So those are a lot of some other elements that kind of can come into play in that A/B testing element.
Yeah, and like I said, we're doing A/B tests still, right? Unlike, what if we default them to subscribe and save? What if we default them to 1 bag versus 2 bags, or like there's different types of A/B tests you can do, like that will affect your conversion rate, right? And so and at the same time, right, like your how long that customer stays subscribed. And so yeah, there's a lot of possibilities, or I guess ideas you could test, right? That would be more specific to your company.
That makes sense. Okay, does anybody else have any questions? Even if there's a follow-up from Chris or Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Of course. Yeah, that Matt, sorry. Okay, Ivan, do you have any kind of like maybe closing thoughts you want to kind of wrap up? Again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to chime in, but we'll wrap up.
Let's see, Chris mentioned here, do you have a strategy around ads to subscribe? Yes, there is definitely a strategy when it comes down to our supplement products, right, or our consumable type of products, right? And we actually mention, the subscribe and save, right, option and in the ad, right? If obviously we do different creatives, right? But like we do mention that, like, hey, if you subscribe and save, you get this much discounted, right? And it definitely, there's, obviously, like that becomes a little bit more difficult, right? To tie in, like, does that person stay, subscribe longer and things like that. But like, you can definitely incentivize people to come and shop and purchase, right? By like offering, the discount right up front, in the ad. So that's something that we've definitely tested and played around with. What has been the most challenging feature you developed for your subscription program? That product page change was a beast. It doesn't seem that complicated. Somebody was like, "Oh, that's so easy to do," but like when you look at the back end of things, like obviously the way you configure it and the page form, like the way the page is laid out, how customizable that is, and everything. We invested quite a bit in terms of development to make that happen. The cool part is, it's given us like it's now spurred on like more ideas of like, how can we make different variations of the same page, maybe different kinds of options, and how can we use those different variations to then optimize for maybe first time customer experiences and just different things like that. And so but it was definitely a challenging project. It took us about a month to develop. We had some outside resources available for that as well. So, but once it was done, we have a lot to work with. So yeah, that was definitely the way I guess we came that was bringing in outside help, because we had such a tight deadline. We hired an additional WooCommerce developer for that.
Cool. Okay, anybody else?
And if you do use WooCommerce, like, just to mention out loud, right? Like there's this plugin called Advanced Custom Fields Pro, which we're making use of for this particular page format. So it makes it flexible. It's flexible enough, right, to be able to manipulate the way your pages look, create different templates, and just format the pages how you want them to be formatted. So hopefully that gets you guys going in the right direction if we're looking to do something similar.
Cool. Yeah, then Jonathan had a question about how much custom code do you use versus a low code service like Zapier?
Good question. We're still, I would say, more heavily towards custom coding things as versus like using like no code solutions like Zapier, just because there's the nature of like how data gets passed along isn't from like WooCommerce or your subscription thing service, right? Like you don't always have that data available to pass to Zapier, so then it makes things a bit different. But yeah, as I guess percentage wise, it would still be like 95% custom, 5% no code, right? But we're looking for ways to offset that, right? And we're actually building out. This is kind of separate, but we're building out like a business intelligence platform that's kind of very no code. That is actually going to help us bring in like data sources from like different parts of our business or even multiple websites, and maybe shipping system, inventory system. It's something that we've been working on this quarter, and it's been actually really fun to do. And since it's very no code, it's just the setup process, right? We're using a Google Cloud platform to do this, and it's something that if you have the resources available, like I definitely would recommend it if you're looking to better understand how your business is working.
Yeah, and so another question from Matt, thinking about and honestly, Matt, this is something that I think about and talk about a lot too. It's what roles in the organization are usually taking on these types of challenges? Is that like a cross-departmental team of marketing, sales involved, business intelligence, or IT?
Yeah, it's definitely a cross-department, work job, right? And our CEO obviously, works, with the department managers to, brainstorm and work out and figure out and solve, solutions. And so, yeah, you can't really work on this siloed, right? Like your marketing team definitely has to work with your IT team to understand what's capable and possible, right? What's already, on the IT team's plate before you can make something work out, right? And so it has to start as a joint effort, right, across the departments. Even bringing in here's your customer support team, your operations manager, right? Like just understanding their challenges too, because depending on the kind of subscription model you go with, right? If you go with the box model, or if you go with kind of more of a auto ship type, subscribe on a specific item, model. That brings its own challenges. One thing we do on an operational level that maybe other companies might want to do is we actually prioritize the orders that are coming in from auto ship. We actually put those in the front of the line in terms of getting them out of the door first, because one thing we noticed is there's kind of more of an urgency depending on the kind of product that you're selling. If the customer really needs it, they just want to get it as soon as possible, right? If they're a subscribe and save customer, you want to keep them happy, right? So what we do is we actually put those customers first in line every day. Those are the first orders that we get to, right, out the door. So that way, we make sure that they're satisfied, right? They get the product as soon as possible. So that based off of your shipping system, that should be doable. If it, you should be able to get the data that you need to make that possible. But if not, you obviously work with your IT team to make that doable.
It makes a lot of sense. I think like most team organizational units, you run into an issue where the more people you involve, the more ideas you start to get and the more complicated things can be. But I would say with a lot of what you've talked about, it sounds like iHeartDogs, you decided on an MVP, you went with it, you started going with it for a while, and then you're still using that cross-departmental team approach to figure out how to improve things, make things better, improve the offer, all that. So that makes a lot of sense. That's one thing we see when we're onboarding customers sometimes is pie in the sky. I want it to be this kind of crazy thing, and you ask, well, where's your data coming from that? Do you have a lot of customers who are asking for that? Well, no, I want it to be that way as a business owner, as a marketer. And a lot of brands can still launch like that, but honestly, where we see a lot of success are people that they bring it back down a little bit more, they get some more data, and then they realize, oh, wow, actually, I need to be over here. I need to be doing this. This is what's driving more value for my business.
Yep.
Cool. All right, any more questions? It's been great. We told them we were wrapping up, and we got a ton more questions.
Yeah. Get them in while we still can.
I would say as we are wrapping up, Ivan, I know that, in addition to your work with those brands, you do take on other clients through iFixWoo and all things WooCommerce. So do you have a link that you can drop to people if they want to reach you or get in contact with you?
Yeah, I'll drop it here in the chat so that way.
Cool. And then I will add, Ivan, and for those brands that he's working with right now, he does use a plugin on WooCommerce called AutoShip Cloud, and that is powered by the QPilot platform. So just so everybody knows, that is kind of who we are, and I'll drop the link for that as well in case you're interested in learning more about that. And then, yeah, any final thoughts, Ivan?
I think it was a great discussion. Hopefully got everybody's minds thinking about subscriptions. And I really hope, you guys have great success if you do go ahead and start with it. Or if you've already been doing it, look for ways to how you can improve it. Just because, like I said, it's if you've been doing it for a while, you kind of went with the set and forget model, right? Then it's probably time to actually, put some time and attention to it. And see how you can grow that if it makes sense, obviously, for your business. So, like we said, some of our challenges, increasing margins on our product, and that's not something you do overnight most of the time. Usually you have to, do some heavy work to make that happen. So, it's worth looking into though.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, I want to thank everybody again for tuning in, and I want to thank you a ton, Ivan, for bringing your expertise and knowledge and everything that you've been doing with those brands, as well as wish you the best of luck in the future. So thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Ivan.
Bye.
Bye.